We're here with actor slash producer John Hill, who many of you may recognize from his Broadway roles in Hairspray, among others. Bear had a big cult following. What is your background? Where did you come from? Where did you go to school?
I came from San Antonio, Texas. Grew up doing theater from like when I was 5 years old, and then I was always in shows, always. And then I went to Pepperdine, which is in California, and I was a theater major. And third year, my junior year, I guess, I had been, every time they would have like a Les Mis open call, I would go and just sing whatever song I knew, and I would usually sing from the show, which I guess is not a great thing to do all the time, but I didn't care, and I knew the song, so I would go, and they kept saying like, you know, you're young, but keep coming back, and Miss Saigon had an open call. I skipped the class, and I drove to the Valley to like the Debbie Reynolds studio, and I booked Miss Saigon. I left college, and I toured around the United States for about a year, and then moved to New York. Then I couldn't get arrested for like 6 months, and then bartended.
As much as you tried, right, to get arrested?
Right, I tried really hard. And I bartended for a little bit, and then I was really obsessively focused on trying to get a show because I just wanted to pay bills, you know, really. And I went back to school. I finished my degree, stayed in school, and then Hairspray came along. I came in and I knew Matt Morrison. I knew a few other people who were in the cast just from around, and Craig Burns called and said, James Carpinello, who was originally Link. So he booked a movie, this, I forget what it is, not Face Off, but he booked some movie with John Travolta, and so Matt Morrison moved up to Link, and they needed someone to fill Matt's track, which was Fender. And Craig was like, come on, there are only like 4 of you, we just need someone like immediately we're about to go to Seattle for the out-of-town tryout, so we need somebody immediately, so it's just you and a few other people, it'll be no big deal. And I'm not a dancer, but I went, and he's just, you know, wear, you know, white t-shirt and jeans, and I got there and it was like a sea of guys all wearing the same thing, and I was just like, oh gosh, I'm not gonna get this.
Yeah.
The first thing they did was dance, and I was like, well, this is good, I'll be able to just go home and watch TV today, because I knew I wouldn't pass the dance call. So I kind of was like, expecting nothing, so I got front and center and just was like, I danced really hard, and they cut half of us, and then we read, and I read with Katie Grenfell, and I just did the whole scene directly to her tits, and I just didn't even look, that was my one bit, and they cut half of us then, and then we sang, so we kind of went in order of my level of comfortability.
Yeah.
And then I sang, and I happened to have, I didn't have a book, I never really had it. I didn't go to musical theater school, so I didn't really know the tricks of the trade about like having a book or how to walk into a room or anything like that. But the little paltry book that I had was like an Elvis song and Uncle Fucker. From South Park, which Mark had written. So I was like, this is all I have, and I didn't realize that he had written it. And he was like, you have this in your book? And I was like, that's like one of the only songs I know. So that scored me a few points. They whittled it down to 4 of us, then 2 of us, and then later that day, Brittany Kelsey called and said, you know, you got the gig. I mean, it was like the happiest day of my life. Like,
yeah.
I can pay my credit card bill. You know, it's good. Went to Seattle, and that, I mean, Hairspray was the best experience of my life for sure. You know, performing wise. Definitely.
Yeah, fun show. I mean, it was high energy.
Everyone, we were all pretty tight. We were a really good, like, close family. Still to this day, we all, you know, love each other a lot.
And then after Hairspray, you left Hairspray and you did Bear, which...
I did. I left to do Boy from Oz.
Oh, right, Boy from Oz, yep.
Yeah. So a year, I was in Hairspray for a year, and then I went in for Boy from Oz, and it was kind of a good, a perfect storm of what I had to do. I randomly have a really good Australian accent. I am from Texas, so they were looking for someone to cover Hugh and cover Jared Emmett, who was, his role as Texan. So I had the Texas down. I had an Australian accent. I actually look a lot like Peter Allen. Maybe you can't tell now, but when I walked in, they were like, okay, if you can pull it out. And I also play the piano and sing, so it all kind of, that was a good audition experience. And I went in like 10 times. That was another dance situation that I wasn't comfortable with. They were like, double pirouette to the floor and the splits, and I was just like, I can't do any of that. But for some weird reason, I did. I don't know how I am still walking, but I did that.
It's the fake legs.
Yeah. And I also could fit Hugh's costumes. We're the same height and stuff like that. So that all kind of worked out. And then did Boy from Oz for, I guess, 9 months. And then Bear came along. And I did that. And I had known about Bear for a really long time. My first boyfriend was the original, or one of the original Jasons back in LA when Damon was still writing at USC. And I was like, this sucks. I hate this show. This is the worst piece of crap. Back in the day. And then Ryan Mullis, who worked for Dave Clemens at the time, who cast Boy from Oz, he was like, you should do this, you should come in for it. And I was like, I know about that show, I hate it. He's like, no, they rewrote it, it's good. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And of course I loved it. I went in and we only ran for 2 months. That was it.
But you really had you were really able to show your vocal ability most in that show.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of singing. I was really, it was a hard experience though, because it was really challenging vocally, and even having done Miss Saigon and stuff, I was kind of, I felt comfortable with my voice, but Bear for some reason was tough. I mean, it was tough. The way Damon wanted it was really specific, and sometimes he didn't communicate, or we didn't communicate well together. He'd be like, I don't know. It was really hard.
Yeah.
But a good challenge.
What made you make the leap to producer?
Starting The Boy from Oz, I started to feel like a couple things happened. I was in the line at the bank for the teller, and I was in the line, and this guy came in, and I was just eavesdropping on their conversation, and he was telling his friend in line, he was like, well, I'm going to go to Wichita for some insurance weeks, and he was probably 45. And in that moment, I was just like, I can't be 45 going to Wichita for insurance weeks. Just not for me. I felt like I wanted to do more. My mom's a writer, she's published like 30 books. And I started just naturally. I've always written music, I've always written stuff. And I started writing a book. And through that process, I started to enjoy it way more than auditioning for stuff. I was a horrible auditioner, really bad. I've had like 3 good auditions, and those are like the 3 things I booked. But otherwise, I'm terrible. I'm not a good auditioner. But with writing, I felt really in control. I felt, I could spend all the time I wanted on it, rewriting stuff and learning how to edit yourself. I don't know, I just really fell in love with the process of writing, which I'd always done all my life, but I was like, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll explore this as a career too. In the middle of that process, why am I saying process so much?
At least you're not saying organic.
My craft. But, Bear. So I started Boy from Oz, I was writing a lot of stuff. I was writing pilots, I was writing movies, but I'm really focusing on this book that I wrote that no one will ever read, including me again. It's really bad. But, we had like a summer hiatus for Bear because they were like, we're going to go to Broadway, we're going to go off Dodger Stages at the time, which is now New World Stage.
Right.
And
then it ended up there.
Exactly. So that summer, I really just took the time, because I couldn't really audition for other stuff, and I took a lot of time to really write the stuff I wanted to write. And one of the things that I wrote was a treatment for a television show. my roommate and I, we would just watch show choir tapes and make fun of them relentlessly, and I thought it would be a really great subject for a documentary series, you know, just following a real show choir. So this is like 2 years before Glee. So I went out to LA, I took a trip out there, and I knew some people in that world a little bit through friends and through Mark and Scott, and so I went in and pitched the show, and I pitched a few things, and the one thing that landed was this treatment for this show. And I sold the idea and the concept to World of Wonder, which is, they make RuPaul's Drag Race, and Eyes of Tammy Faye, and Monica Black and White, Monica Lewinsky. A lot of really good documentaries that I was, the Eyes of Tammy Faye, did I say that? Anyway, they're great. And so they were into it, they got it. We sold it to MTV, and that was that. That was really how I made the leap, and that was so time consuming. I moved to West Virginia for a year to shoot them, and then that's a whole other ball of wax. At the time, while we were there, Glee, unbeknownst to us, was kind of happening, so I got back to LA and there's posters everywhere of Glee. I knew that Matt had gone in for this, but I didn't realize it was so similar. But my show never aired because the choir director actually had some really bad issues. So legally we weren't allowed to air it, but we made it and it's really good. But that was my first TV job, and that was a good way to go because most people start as a PA and they work their way up. I was never a big TV person. My mom didn't really let us watch a lot of TV, which is good, but so I never really, I wasn't passionate about television, but I was passionate about like writing and telling stories and stuff like that, and directing and shooting and stuff like that. So I took to it really well, and then so when that didn't really work out, they put me onto Tori and Dean in Love, which is the Tori Spelling show, and I did that for about a year, and then after that I just never stopped working. I just started, you know, really being a producer. A lot of times in the field, I did Project Runway and Top Chef, and then I started really doing a lot of stuff for Bravo, and then that was the beginning.
Yeah, and currently at Watch What Happens Live.
Yeah, I do Watch What Happens Live and Fashion Queens, which I don't know if you've seen.
I have not seen that, but it must be similar since Watch What Happened Live, anything can happen since it is live. Right. It kind of goes back to your Broadway roots.
Yeah, I love
of having to be on your toes the entire time. What's it like a typical day for you being a producer of Watch What Happens Live, since it is so late at night?
Yeah, well, we kind of, we have a great team. We have a small but really efficient team there, and we kind of leapfrog. Since we do 5 shows a week, they're all, you know, there's a lot of content, even though it's 30 minutes, there's a lot of stuff to figure out. So it's a lot of, my job is purely creative, I love it. It's, so, you know, me and this other girl, we kind of leapfrog, so I'll kind of own the show while she's prepping for the next day, then I'll do the same. So if I'm in charge of the show that night, I'll wake up about 8, go to the gym, do my stuff, and then I will write from home for like 2 hours, send the script to Andy and some other people, and then get to the office about 2, and then figure the whole, you know, what are we going to do for that night, kind of polish it up, and 7 we have a tech meeting, 8 o'clock we rehearse all the elements of the show with like a, you know, stand-in for Andy, and then we figure out all the kinks. He comes in about 9, we rehearse with him about around 10, and then do the show at 11. So that's it. It's a long day.
It is a long day.
Yeah. But it's great. We all have a kind of, you know, if you're busy, someone else can pick up the slack, and vice versa.
But it works. A lot of the games that people play, it's not like your typical daytime talk show. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, you can get away with a little more. So it's got to be entertaining to work on.
It is, and a lot of that stuff that ends up on the show is just stuff that we make each other laugh. You know, it's kind of like, if we think it's funny, we just we'll put it in the show. And even if it's not, we still think it's funny.
I think it's funny when Andy thinks something is absolutely ridiculous and he can't even believe he's saying it. but
Yeah.
he does it anyway, and he has a good time with
That's
it.
my favorite. That's my favorite part is when he. Sometimes he won't read everything and he'll wait till the show, and that's my favorite part because he'll kind of. He won't know what he's talking about.
Right.
Which is really fun though.
Now, what advice would you give to people who either want to act or produce, whatever you feel strongest, or both?
It's a good question. I feel like as I've gotten older, all the cliches are true. Believe in yourself, follow your dreams, all that stuff is actually really true. And people would say that and I would always be like, eh. But it really is true. And I think back to when I was like 5 and 6 years old, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to perform. I knew I wanted to do something related to show business. And it's just, if you know that that's what you want to do, it doesn't matter what anyone says. And I feel like also I always felt like a little bit of a fish out of water because I didn't go to CCM, I didn't go to Michigan, I didn't go to Carnegie Mellon. And I really felt kind of out of it as far as a performer here. I didn't have a book, like I said. But I think, don't have a plan B. I think go for it. I know this is the lamest answer, but that's
Your personality
what I
has
would
a lot
say.
to do with your success too, right? I mean, you're pretty laid back and funny.
Well,
From
I mean, I hope so.
at least I remember certain things that you did during your Hairspray days and and during Bear, there was stuff with Seth Rudzinski, and you didn't take yourself so seriously, you know?
No. Well, and I always around that time, around Bear, I started doing a lot of stand-up too, which is kind of bizarre. But I love doing that. I love doing comedy, and that's kind of what I do now. Is a lot of is kind of a throwback to what I was doing when I started doing stand-up, which is so strange. I think a lot of people were like, what are you doing? But I loved it. I loved writing my own material, getting up and doing it. I loved, I still do. I mean, I still like, writing funny stuff. Hopefully it's funny. But that's what I love about my job is that every day I just kind of wake up and I make myself and my dog laugh, or I try to. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have anything great to say for advice, but just do it. Like you always say, if you want to write, write. And that's true for me. If you don't get up and make it's really about self-discipline too. If you don't focus on, even if you don't know what you're going to write, it's so cliche, but if you write for 20 minutes a day, you'll figure it out. And you teach, it's one thing, I don't know if there's any other career like this, but if you really can teach yourself. If you read a lot, if you write a lot, and you read what you've written, this is so boring. But that's the way.
I just stopped taping like 10 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
cut it out.
I'm kidding. Keep going. No.
That's my advice. You do you.
Do you? Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to do this.
Thank you.
It's been great, and look forward to all good things in the future for you.
Thank you.